Hi everyone, my name is Timothy Handline Jr. and I'm the author of the website lifeline2nac.com, and several years ago I was a priest in the New Apostolic Church because I was raised in the New Apostolic Church and I was taught from birth really to believe the New Apostolic doctrine and really never had any reason to doubt it until I actually, as a priest, started to feel responsible for the material and started to actually read the Bible on my own so that I could teach it better. Now, this study of the Scriptures led to a lot of questions about the New Apostolic Church's doctrine. But instead of answering these questions really sufficiently, the New Apostolic Church leadership rather said, it doesn't matter what the Scriptures say, all that matters is what we say. And then, of course, I realized that we've got a big problem with the doctrine of the New Apostolic Church because, as Jeremiah says, as the Most High said to the prophet Jeremiah, "Cursed is the man who trusts in man." And the Proverbs even say, "The fear of men brings a snare." So we're not supposed to trust nor fear men, but that's exactly what I did growing up in the New Apostolic Church. And now that I've left, I can tell you very assuredly that it's as if the smoke is cleared in a lot of regards, but it's not a function necessarily of leaving the New Apostolic Church, although that was part of it. It was more of a function of getting into the Scriptures and really studying and really eating it up, understanding the Hebrew, understanding the Greek, so that we can really understand the will of the Most High for ourselves, so that I can teach my children the will of the Most High and do so with a clear conscience, knowing that they're getting the truth, and they're getting the truth from Scriptures. Now, that's just a really key point. That's really not emphasized, and it's certainly not taught in the New Apostolic Church. I should know. I was raised there, and I learned their doctrine, and I even taught their doctrine, and I can tell you the Scriptures are just not important in the New Apostolic Church. What is important to the people in the New Apostolic Church is the words of Chief Apostle Leber. And I want to talk about his words really briefly as they regard to this article on the New Apostolic Church's website titled Word of the Month for February 2010. And the title of this article here that he writes is "The Foundation of God Stands." And there's just a couple things in here I want to bring out. Then I'd like to direct you to my website at lifeline2nac.com, where I posted a response to this particular article in detail and at length that really contrasts what Leber has written here with what is explicitly stated in the Scriptures. Now, Leber makes a couple of statements here which I explained in the article. Let me just elaborate on a few of them right now because I think it's really important. First of all, it's this use of the word, two things, iniquity and love. And I want to make sure that we clearly understand from a scriptural perspective what those two terms really mean, iniquity and love. Leber evokes 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 19, which reads as follows: "Nevertheless, the foundation of Elohim standeth sure, having this seal, Yah knoweth them that are his. And let every one that nameth the name of Messiah depart from iniquity." That word iniquity is the Greek word adikia, which means moral wrongfulness. And it's, by the way, an interesting word that we also see in the 7th chapter of Matthew and the 23rd verse. Let me read this here. In the 23rd verse, we see that word iniquity again, but in this context, it's the Greek word anomia, but it's a little more explicit than the reference in Timothy. That word anomia is really an explicit reference of lawlessness. So we're going to read, what does lawlessness, from a scriptural perspective, mean? Let's read it. "Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord," this is verse 21 from Matthew chapter 7, "Not every one who saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven." And the will of the Father which is in heaven, let me pause right there. is that we obey his commandments. This is a theme that goes throughout the scriptures from beginning to end. And the Most High has said he does not change what goes forth from his mouth. So once he says it, doesn't change it. His will is that we obey his laws. Obedience to his laws is the way we show our Creator, our Father in heaven, that we love him. When we don't obey him, we are telling him that we do not love him. And Yeshua even said in Matthew chapter 7 that those that will be great in the kingdom of heaven will be those that keep and teach his commandments. And those are the same commandments that were given at Sinai, the same commandments that were given as a contract to the nation of Israel that they would inherit and dwell in the promised land. So the deal was, look, Israel, Yah says, Israel, you keep my commandments and I'll let you dwell in the land. But even though that particular contract really isn't in effect anymore, the code of ethics of our Creator certainly still is. Now that's an important point. It goes from beginning to end in the scriptures, that it's often, well, it's very much obscured in today's Christendom. And it's not only in the New Apostolic Church, it's in virtually every Christian denomination. Lawlessness is ubiquitous in Christendom. They have no sense of what it means to obey our Creator anymore. But let me finish here in the reference in Matthew. Verse 23, Yeshua says this to the people, and then I will profess unto them, this is at the end of the age, I never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. And again, that word iniquity, anomia, is lawlessness. Lawlessness. So if you don't want Yeshua, your Messiah, to say to you, depart from me, ye who do lawlessness, then stop doing lawlessness, which means start doing lawfulness and obey the Creator's, our Father's, commandments. Now, there's also a reference in here, Leber writes, another thing which is incompatible with the will of God is lovelessness. To act without love is iniquity in the eyes of God. Now, the definition of love, according to Leber, and according to the New Apostolic Church doctrine, and really according to our culture, is more on the line of tolerance of sin. But the scriptures have something completely different to say about love. And the scriptures define love this way. In Leviticus chapter 19, verses 17 through 19, we read this, Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Now that's King James English, but let's rephrase and it'll have the same meaning. Do not hate your brother in your heart, but rebuke your neighbor frankly. And don't suffer sin because of him. So if your neighbor's in sin, the most loving thing you can do for him is to rebuke him frankly. To tell him right from the book, chapter and verse, where he's in error, and to help him to see it, because he's going to have to give an account for that sin on the day of judgment. And if you don't help him out of that sin by telling him the truth, the scriptures say that's not loving. So, verse 18, Thou shalt not avenge thyself, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yah. You shall keep my statutes. So we see that from the scriptures, the word iniquity means lawlessness, which means not keeping Yah's commandments. And we see that love is rebuking your neighbor frankly so that he stops sinning. And that's the key. It's a point. Those are points that are just lost in Leber's words there. He doesn't explain that at all, but those are the explanations from Scripture. So again, my name is Timothy Handline Jr. I'll be glad to take your questions or comments. If you'll go to my website, lifeline to NAC.com, and click on the links there to send me an email. Thanks for listening.